Fires so overwhelming they came within shouting distance of one of America's great national monuments and blackened millions of acres in the western United States. Hello and welcome to American Heat. I'm Don Marsh.
And I'm Ron Barber. We'll have in-depth reports on those ravaging blazes that continue in certain western locations as of this taping. But first, our report on the tragedy at Hackensack Ford in New Jersey. July 1st, 1988, the first call came into Hackensack Fire Headquarters at 1459 to report a fire at the A1 used car dealer. What followed was to become one of the worst multi-fatal firefighter incidents in recent U.S. history. What we report to you here is only in the spirit of passing along vital information that could ultimately save lives. This report is meant to be nothing more or less. In the 117-year history of the Hackensack, New Jersey Fire Department, there had never been a firefighter killed in a fire until July 1st, 1988. But between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., that changed forever. It is just past 3 p.m., and off-duty River Edge, New Jersey firefighter Mike Jurgensen is on the scene of a fire in the rear of Hackensack Ford on River Street. Jurgensen, who always carries a video camera, has heard the call of fire on his car scanner and is approximately 2 minutes away.
The smoke is very acidic. We're on the scene here in Hackensack on River Street, Ford dealership, across from McDonald's. You got a working fire in the attic.
Hackensack Fire Headquarters has dispatched engines 301 and 304, Rescue 308, a one-man unit, and Battalion 1. Jurgensen has positioned himself on the south side of the building. As you face the front of the auto dealership, Jurgensen is on the right, a service area with several bay doors. When first responders arrived at Hackensack Ford, here's what they faced. Hackensack Ford was located on a major north-south roadway. Built in the late 1940s, extensively renovated in 1973, it had 4 sections: a showroom area in front, a parts department, a large service area, and a body shop in the rear. In the rear, the east end of the service area, a so-called tool room measured 18 feet by 20 feet. That room was constructed of concrete block. It had only one door for openings. The rear wall of the room featured a concrete block wall, separating the service area from the body shop. That service area had a wood bowstring roof, again with concrete block walls. There were 5 wooden trusses with a clear span of 78 feet, approximately 16 feet apart. It's very important to note, too, that the attic space had been used for automobile parts storage. Running the entire length of the service and repair areas, it also contained oil, gas, antifreeze, some cleaning fluid, bits and pieces of wood, plastics, and paper, according to Hackensack Ford employees. The ceiling had 2 scuttles, or access holes, one on the east and one on the west. There was no fire detection, alarm system, or automatic sprinklers. The total ground floor area was approximately 18,000 square feet. The attic area above the service area consisted of 7,800 square feet. There was also a small stairway leading up into that part storage area. Workers observed an automobile exhaust removal system hose burning at ceiling level. Although the hose burned off and was extinguished by an employee, the fire had apparently been burning in the attic for several minutes. Employees started evacuating Hackensack Ford. That the fire had a substantial head start seems to be verified by the first call to Hackensack Ford from a woman at a tennis club about a block away who reported seeing flames and smoke. She had called almost 30 seconds before any employees of Hackensack Ford telephoned authorities. In exactly 2 minutes, the first engine has radioed to headquarters. 304 on the scene. We have a heavy smoke condition. It appears to be a working fire. As you watch the tape, we will describe to the best of our knowledge what was taking place. Over the course of the next several minutes, firefighters under the command of Battalion Chief Sandy Williams tried to determine the exact location and extent of the fire.
Put a second to putting a third alarm
in. The officer from Engine 304, seeking to find the source of the smoke, tried to find access to the attic. It was from there smoke appeared to be coming. The rest of the crew advanced a 1 1/2 inch hand line into the service area. The truck crew made an assessment of conditions on the roof at 15:04:54. Truck 307 radios 307 to Battalion 1. You got heavy smoke coming out of the rear of the building on the top. Seen here, Truck 307 raised a ground ladder to the roof, commencing ventilation operations. By this time, there was heavy smoke and heavy fire developing and getting worse. Opening the scuttle hole on the east end was difficult due to the heavy material on the hatch. Once open, high heat conditions were observed in the attic, and a hose line was directed into the space. Directing that hose line were veteran firefighters who within minutes would die in the collapse of the wooden truss roof. At 15:07 hours, Fire Headquarters orders Engine Company 302 respond to the rear of Hackensack Ford. That's coming in for a second alarm. Lieutenant Richard Reinhagen in turnout gear is seen on the roof conferring with Battalion Chief Williams. No progress is being made in stopping the fire from the interior. The extent of its development cannot be gauged from inside. Access to the north side is impeded by vehicles which are eventually moved by dealership employees.
The gate that we just came in is all blocked with automobiles, and the other side's got lines. They can't get apparatus back here.
In the back of the building, they can't get apparatus. They don't even have hand lines stretched back here.
Now at 15:09:36, Battalion Chief Williams tells the crew from Engine Company 302, come in with your manpower. I need some manpower here. Engine 302, 10-4. It is presumed that Lieutenant Reinhagen then joined his other crew members inside the dealership, trying to locate the specific source of the fire. At about this time, there appeared to be some confusion regarding who was transmitting on the single Hackensack fire channel, with Engine 302 having been ordered inside the building at 15:10:07. Battalion Chief Williams radios 302 report into me, but instead Truck 307 responds 307, we're trying to vent it now. Inside, using a 1 1/2 inch handline, Lieutenant Reinhagen and his crew were assisting the ongoing efforts to get into the attic. These efforts continued for approximately 20 minutes. But by 15:34:25, as conditions worsened, Battalion Chief Williams ordered attack crews inside out. Battalion 1 to all companies, back your lines out, back your lines out. There was, however, never any indication via radio that any of the firefighters on the interior attack ever heard the order. And by most calculations, within just over 2 minutes, the wooden truss roof at Hackensack Ford collapsed.
The ceiling and second floor just collapsed.
It is during this footage that the collapse is occurring.
All of a sudden, I heard a tremendous cascade of ceiling, roof, and so on. All came down at one time. Fire flashed all over the place. And we ran in, but the fire had increased so badly we couldn't get to them.
And that's when I was walking through the shop, and the whole ceiling caved in on top of like 5 firemen. I seen like 2 get up and run, but I don't know about the rest though.
Less than 3 minutes later, a transmission from Engine 302. We have 2 men stuck inside the rear of the building. And again at 15:39:46, 302 to Fire Headquarters, you have 2 men stuck in the rear of the building. Again at 15:41:09, 302 to Battalion 1. Finally, a response from Battalion 1, but instead he answered the wrong call. Battalion 1, 307. Engine 302 comes back. Battalion 1, be advised, I'm lost in the rear of the building. But again, no acknowledgement. This time, the next transmission comes from car 300, that of Fire Chief Anthony Ayelos at 15:41:33. 300 to Fire Headquarters, also get that tower ladder from the city garage. I want it up here. Engine 302, Chief, be advised, we have to open up a hole. Stephen Ennis and myself are trapped in the back here. Battalion 1 to Headquarters, repeat that message. Fire Headquarters to last unit to Battalion 1, 10-5 your message. 302 to Battalion 1, you have to move. I'm stuck in the right rear of the building where it opened up. We're under the roof. When the roof had collapsed, Lieutenant Reinhagen and firefighter Ennis had retreated here to a small part storage closet. Intense fire and debris had surrounded them. By 15:49:38, members of the public who had scanners and a police detective listening into the activity from his office contacted fire headquarters. "Yeah, this is Jim Flynn up at the task force. I know you're busy, but on our scanners here we heard there are guys trapped in there. The scene can't hear them. We can hear their bells going off on the scanner here." By 15:50:18, Lieutenant Reinhagen and firefighter Ennis were still in the closet. "Chief, this is Lieutenant Reinhagen. Firefighter Ennis and myself are stuck in a closet right rear of the building, and we're out of air." And in the final series, Engine 302, stuck in the closet, right rear, no air, help. Battalion 1, are you on the second floor? Battalion 1 to 302, are you on the first floor? 302, first floor, underneath the collapsed ceiling. Over the course of the 13 minutes, according to the transcribed transmissions, Lieutenant Reinhagen radioed some 30 times. At least 15 of those calls indicated he and Ennis were trapped and either running out of air or were out of air. With the battalion chief and firefighter reservists in street clothing helping man hose lines in a belated rescue attempt and uncertainty on location of the trapped, the efforts were too little, too late. Apparently killed instantly in the collapse were 53-year-old Captain Richard Williams, a 24-year veteran, 51-year-old William Kresha, also a 24-year veteran, and 14-year veteran 38-year-old Leonard Radomski. 48-year-old Lieutenant Reinhagen, a 23-year veteran, and 30-year-old firefighter Stephen Ennis, a 5-year veteran. Reinhagen and Ennis asphyxiated in the closet. In the days, weeks, and months that have followed the tragedy at Hackensack Ford, there's been a seemingly infinite amount of taking stock. Chief Ayelos, a 37-year fire service professional, stands by his feelings that under the given circumstances, he would not do anything differently.
In retrospect, is there anything that could have been done differently in terms of equipment or procedure that might have prevented this from happening?
And in a news conference days prior to this taping, Hackensack City Manager Casey agreed the chief had requested newer communications equipment, had requested another fire frequency, had requested more manpower, and had been making such requests for the most part over a period of years.
Chief, could you tell us, he said it was a radio failure, a manpower failure, a command failure. For how long and how loudly had you asked for those things from city management?
One of the key things would have been a fireground channel, but that wasn't available until recently. And in the upgrading of the communication system that Mr. Casey mentioned, it was in there to include the fireground channel. That was in this year.
What about more manpower? Had you asked for more manpower in previous years, for previous budgets?
Every year that we reduce a bit the budget, every year we try to increase it, including fireground operations, firefighters, fire prevention.
After I instructed the chief to reduce his budget by 10%, which is the same memo that went out to all my other operating people, the chief filed a protest with me that in fact that would jeopardize his effective operation of the department. I received similar memos from other agencies in the city. The reality was that because of the financial constraints placed upon the city in 1988, we could not meet those and other requests. You have your police department also had manpower assignments in 1988, less than 1987, and the same happened in public works as we attempted and were forced to redirect a tremendous amount of our money into refuse disposal.
Since the tragedy at Hackensack Ford, 2 major investigative reports have been issued. In its summary investigation report, the NFPA said, investigators have determined the probable cause of the fire was accidental. The fire originated in the attic area. The area contained an abundant amount of stored combustible materials representing a substantial fuel load. The stored materials likely affected the structural integrity of the truss. Trusses are vulnerable to collapse under fire conditions because they are composed of relatively lightweight members. A characteristic of wood trusses is that failure of one part causes the entire truss to fall. Much more critical was the report prepared by consultant David Demers, writing under assignment from the International Association of Firefighters. Demers' report states, "The most significant factor that resulted in the fatalities was failure of the fire ground commanders to recognize the wood bowstring roof truss construction and the associated hazards to firefighters with the extent of fire development evident from the exterior. Major contributing factors were lack of effective communications both on the fire ground and between the fire ground commanders and fire headquarters, and the absence of an effective fire ground command structure both before the collapse and especially after collapse during rescue attempts. Even if more manpower had been available sooner, the probability of a successful rescue would have only increased marginally because there was not an effective fire ground command structure to organize the personnel." Approximately 7 minutes after the battalion chief's arrival, there was sufficient information available that should have resulted in a decision to abandon interior offensive operations. Demers also writes, "There was a great deal of talking on the radio, but a severe lack of communication. Numerous messages were transmitted with no acknowledgement. The radio system itself caused a great deal of confusion. One radio frequency for the fire ground to fire headquarters, emergency medical calls, dispatching fire units, and calling in off-duty personnel was totally inadequate. When collapse occurred, there was insufficient manpower on the scene to commence an effective rescue effort. No formal training in building construction and firefighting operations had been offered to the Hackensack firefighters that were interviewed. It was confirmed by Chief Ayelos that no such training had been provided. At the Hackensack Ford fire, prior to the collapse, all of the engine companies and the ladder company responded with 3 personnel. The rescue responded with 1 firefighter who was later killed.
I don't think it was just too much traffic. I think the issue was when they first heard that there was firefighters down in the building, they should immediately shut down all needless communications. They should have went to emergency transmissions only. There was no fire ground control and no accountability for the firefighters at that fire scene. Everybody was freelancing.
The fire scene, in my opinion, based on every report there is and every film there was no command at the fire scene. And as a result, no one really knew what anyone else was doing. We've decided that we're just never going to allow this to happen, whether it be 1 person or 5 people again.
Chief Ayelos says there were critical factors out of the department's control which played key roles in this horror story.
I believe that the whole thing hinges on the excessive weight in the overhead, which is truss roof that shouldn't have been there, plus the fact that the ceiling was made of lath and plaster, which also is not supposed to be in a truss roof. If you look at any other truss roof we have in Hackensack, you can look right to the roof. If we had known that there was a load of auto parts in the overhead, that would have certainly made a difference.
Regarding claims his personnel should not have been involved in an interior attack,
who verified that that building was empty on our arrival? All the Ford employees were running out. Do you think each one of them knew if everyone was out of that building?
On the communications gear,
we had problems with the radio system. Very often on the fire scene, there's communications transmitted from one place to another. And it's a muffled transmission. Even the desk man sometimes can't make out the call.
And on accountability,
that's extremely difficult when you go to a fire that to account for everyone. It's like one of the reporters asked me what time is this and what time is that. We don't walk around with a stopwatch.
our hearts go out to the families of the fallen firefighters, to the men and women of the Hackensack Fire Department. But if there were indeed errors made, it is our only purpose to serve as a medium through which positive change can occur.
And on our next edition of American Heat, we'll be taking a close look at truss roof construction and the inherent dangers of truss roof collapse.